Okay, hello, I'm Brook, this is Margaret. We're with Stickmen Media, a video game development company in Christchurch,
New Zealand.
And we are streaming the development of our video game After the Light, which is a 3D zombie survival game. And today we're basically going to talk about our history, so how we came to be here, how the studio was created. You can see activity in the background, that's basically our crew working away there. And you'll also see some canned video behind this image of somebody developing a character for After the Light. It's our intention to use those canned video in the background to actually show the development of characters and animations and levels and so forth as we go. Please feel free to let us know if you'd like to see more of that stuff, or if you'd like to see some of that stuff live. We're happy to oblige. So as I said in our introductory video, we don't really know what we're doing, but we're going to make it up as we go along.
So we'll bring in other people to talk and show you some cool stuff, hopefully.
Yeah. But starting today, we're going to talk a little bit about our history. So, Stickmen Media really grew out of a previous company, Stickmen Studios. Stickmen Studios started in 2008. In fact, I think we started a few years earlier, but we actually moved into offices in 2008. And yeah, we had planned to make a Nintendo game at that point. In fact, it was a Game Boy game we were planning on making. And we never quite got around to that game, but we did start on a game called Dragon Master Spellcaster when we first started up. And Margaret and I hadn't actually met at that stage, so my partner at the time was a guy called Will, and we had both decided that we wanted to work in the game industry, but realised that we were unlikely to get a job. One, there were no decent sized game development studios in Christchurch. There was a couple of small ones. So we decided to start our own video game company. Yeah, as I said, we started working on a game called Dragon Master Spellcaster.
We have a very small visitor.
Baby in the room.
Not ours.
So Dragon Master Spellcaster was where we basically learnt our lessons. It was not a huge success in terms of popularity or ratings. However, it did have a fairly long tail and actually made some money for us, which was, I guess that's usually a surprise for a first game out for a game studio. So Dragon Master Spellcaster, our target platform was Nintendo Wii. We developed the game for Nintendo Wii without really understanding much about the culture of Nintendo Wii players, so we didn't really apply the same cartoony look and feel that people tend to associate with Nintendo Wii. We had done weird experiments to try and save size, so we had a JPEG based texture format that allowed us to use transparency, and JPEG of course you can't usually use transparency. But all these things made our characters look a little odd, and you know we weren't using cell shading or outlining or anything like that on our characters, so they weren't cartoony, they were a sort of halfway to realistic look for them. So they had some aspects of cartooning and some aspects not, so I think all in all it just didn't fit the audience's expectations that well. I think our review, the first review we got, came in at 2.5 out of 10, so it wasn't anything to jump and cheer for. But surprisingly, as I said, it actually made some money for us, and we learned a lot of lessons along the way. In 2009, I think it was, when we were looking at doing a game that was a steampunk zombie game, and we were looking for musicians. In particular, we needed a unique mix of skills. It would be nice if we found a musician that could actually play the cello and the violin, as well as electric guitar and keyboard. So we found a fellow that worked down the street from us in the Christchurch Council buildings. He was keen to actually help with the music, so he actually played keyboards and was a vocalist, I believe, himself. And when he heard of our requirements, he absolutely knew the perfect person for us. I'm not sure how comfortable it was, but that actually turned out to be his ex-wife, Margaret.
Partner.
Ex-partner. Okay. Oh, okay.
Clear distinction.
Living in sin. Sure, no. Okay. So that's when I first met Margaret, and essentially the nice thing about meeting Margaret was she got it straight away. She got the vision. She got what we needed from the music. So Margaret and I began a friendship that's continued to today. And when Stickmen Studios, I'm not sure how many of you know this, but in 2010 and 2011, a series of earthquakes in Christchurch basically destroyed the inner city. That was devastating for our studio, which was locked away from its dev kits and its means to actually produce video games, and accumulated debt and essentially had to be sold off. So that was very disappointing. The earthquakes themselves were terrifying, so it was a really strange period to be living through. But in 2012, Margaret and I decided to set up Stickmen Media. In fact, we didn't. We really set up a company called Desolate Spectre Studios, which you've seen the branding of if you watch the introductory video. And Desolate Spectre Studios was going to be devoted to making horror games, hence the name. But in order to bootstrap, we had to do some development for other customers, so develop other people's games and apps and so forth. And we needed a more market-friendly name for that activity. So we started trading as Stickmen Media, which we still do today for other customers. But when after the light comes out, you'll see that it's actually developed by Desolate Spectre Studios. Okay. Yeah, so Margaret and I decided to set up a studio in 2012. We started around my dining room table. We had ourselves, so me doing programming, one very talented artist who could do both modelling and concept art. And that's where the story really started. Do you have anything memorable about those days? What did you actually think when I suggested starting again with the company? I remember you were very pushy at the time about getting it happening fast.
I must have thought it was a good idea. You've got something in the tea.
Oh, thank you.
To say.
Hmm.
No, I must have thought it was a good idea.
Okay. So we started around my dining room table, and my previous business partner, that was weird, I just looked up on the screen and I saw myself standing behind myself, but it's actually pre-recorded
Allow myself
video.
to introduce myself to myself.
Indeed. So yeah, 2012 we were around my dining room table. My previous business partner, Will, had gone on he became obsessed with the idea of creating an innovation space in Christchurch that would bring innovation companies back to the centre of Christchurch. it was, for me, I thought it was one of those things where he had really big ambitions, and I didn't think it was possible given the political climate and the way government was operating at the time, with the state of emergency in Christchurch and so forth. But he persisted, he really pushed at it, and eventually he succeeded. So he created a building called Epic, which is basically an innovation centre in the centre of Christchurch. And his dream to actually pull innovation companies back into the centre of town worked. And we were one of the first companies to actually move into Epic. So, my previous business partner still gets to keep a track on the video game development. And initially we moved into a shared office with another game development company, but fairly soon we'd expanded a little, so we ended up with a couple of artists and a programmer, apart from myself and Margaret, and we moved into our own small office in Epic. And just recently, in Christmas time this year, we actually moved into this office, which is sufficient to house 20 people, and currently we've got 10. So we're on our way to being a reasonably good-sized studio again, around the same size as Stickmen Studios was at its height. The activities tend to be the same. We still bootstrap. We still have to do other client stuff, and that's turned out to be very interesting. We've done some really interesting stuff for clients. On the whole, they come to us with weird things that we would never think of doing for ourselves, but which teach us or give us a lot of skills that we wouldn't otherwise have. I guess the decision to make After the Light came out of
There's me.
Yes, I saw you walking in the background. I'm still wandering around in the background. So After the Light is in the same series of games that we'd actually envisaged. The first game that Margaret and I were involved in, the Toy Maker. So we've got plans for a huge game, the Toy Maker, which will be a 3D zombie survival game with a fairly big world.
There we go again.
Yeah. Oh, are we setting up for this? No, that was the other day. But we're over in that corner. Okay. You can see us or you can just see Margaret then over in the corner where we're actually filming this now. So the Toy Maker is a steampunk game. Takes place in a city, and then in a cemetery, and then in catacombs underground. After the Light is basically a slice of the same story, but a different mechanic. So we're actually in the catacombs, fighting zombies on the way to the halls of the dead, where we're going to basically persuade death to take back dominion over the dead. What else do we have to say about our history? So there's the history of the story.
Not a lot, really. You were too concise.
Okay, you haven't said much at all.
You're doing so
I'm
well.
streaming my ass off here. You're not saying anything.
Why would I interrupt? Such genius.
No, carry on. I'm just going to sit here quietly until you say something.
I'm good. Yeah. It's going to be a quiet stream.
It would be a quiet stream. Okay. Okay, so I want to do a little bit more about because we seem to have covered our history in like 12 minutes, which means I guess we haven't had much history. 14 minutes. So the game itself, I guess to give you a good bit of background on the game itself, I wrote a novel a few years ago, and have never quite got it edited sufficiently to push it forward for publishing. But the story, I absolutely love the story that I wrote, and it was one of the things that I managed to enroll Margaret in, who's read the story, one of the few people that has read the story. And yeah, we really liked the idea for the things we could actually bring to life out of that story. So not just the game, but the music as well. And the music, surely you have something to say about. So what about your inspirations for the music and stuff?
For this game or
for Toymaker as a whole? It's sort of, I've heard some wonderful stuff from you. So.
We've kind of lost track a little bit with Toymaker. The original idea was to create something that was going to be a standalone product, basically, so a band that would create an album, songs, music that would have sufficient quality to stand on their own and also to be part of the game. And it really had to be something that was going to be unique, that hadn't been heard or seen before. And we're part of the way down that track. We keep getting distracted.
I guess being distracted in this case by a bite size or a smaller bite of the game than we had originally planned. It takes a lot to raise money in New Zealand for entertainment products, I have to say. And the amounts we deal with, if you were in the US, you could get much larger amounts, and making Toymaker would be less of an issue, I feel, if we were in the US. But here in Christchurch, you have to make do with what you can get, essentially. And so we've raised a small amount of money to make this small game. And when I say small, we're looking at 3 to 4 hours of content. If we were to gather a big enough audience, I think I said this in the introductory video, if we were to gather a big enough audience, we might actually look at pushing out something that's 20 hours, because we'd have the opportunity to raise money there on the backs of having an audience. Anything else you wanted to say about that? What about your inspirations for the music? So I know you were listening to a lot of weird stuff when
well, it's all kind of changed a lot. It's been a long time, so I guess things move on and you listen to different things and you incorporate new ideas. At the time we were listening to a lot of Marilyn Manson and German band.
Rammstein.
Thank you. Yep, Rammstein, them. Who else? Can't remember.
Actually, we had all sorts of people that we listened to there. I think one of the things that enchanted us was the mixture of cello and rock music. We were listening to some Apocalyptica.
Yeah, just the one song.
A cello band, and they did, what was it called? I Don't Care, or something, with Adam Gontier.
I think so.
3 Days Grace. So that was one song that sort of showed off what you could do with cello in rock music. And that sort of had a lot of the feel that we were after at the time. I appreciate things have probably moved on a little bit since then, but that was one of the things that inspired us.
Yeah, perhaps we can talk more about the music in another.
Yeah, I think there's probably, well, certainly as we're developing music, there'll be a stream, a time when we stream the music development. I guess in the meantime, there's a whole lot we need to learn about what we're doing with this stream. For various reasons, it's impractical for us to stand at everybody's shoulders in the lab and film them as they actually do their job. So for the camera guy sitting there filming them, even being as unobtrusive as possible, it's going to make people uncomfortable if he's there trying to get shots of their screen and so forth as they're working. So without being disruptive, we'd still like to capture that activity. So what you can see going on in the background here is we're standing behind our concept artist Lincoln, and he's basically developing a cave system as the basic levels for the game. But we've basically got a camera set up on a tripod, so we're interrupting him as little as possible. eventually he forgets that that's there. But our camera doesn't actually stream, so what we're doing is we're capturing it all, and then essentially playing it on this screen behind us, so that you guys can actually see that activity. As far as live streaming it, were we to buy the camera, it is a possibility, and what I'd like to hear, I suppose, is whether people think that would be a worthwhile thing to do. It might actually prove to be rather tedious to sit behind Lincoln and watch him design caves, or it could be something people are really into. Or is it something we could can and sort of fast play for you guys? As well as Lincoln, you've probably seen already that Linda, our animator, and Sergi, our modeler and sculptor, are all on this video as well. So we're basically putting the camera behind them every day and capturing half an hour to an hour of their work. So that, the half hour of filming that we do at a time is probably sufficient for you to get, to actually see some significant developments happening in the characters, the models, the props, the environment.
Back of Lincoln's neck.
Back of Lincoln's head, yes. The other thing about doing this stuff is if you are in fact, there's Lincoln leaning into the whole camera, but if you are in fact learning one of the activities that goes into video game development, like modelling or animating or all the rest of it, it does actually allow you to see that activity live as it happens in a video game development studio. You'll also see these guys doing, we've recently moved from using Unity, the 3D games engine, to using Unreal. So what you'll see these guys doing is actually learning Unreal. So you'll see them stop for a little while and do a tutorial in Unreal to get the hang of something. And I have to say, they're picking up really fast. So our artists are becoming technical artists. What we haven't filmed, and because for the life of me I can't think that it would be interesting, is we haven't filmed our programmers actually programming. So watching somebody produce C++ code, at a distance where you can't even read the code necessarily, doesn't seem like a fruitful thing for us to stream. But one of the neat things about Unreal, one of the things that I really appreciate, and one of the things that's drawn the artists in and allowed them to start, doing these very technical artistic jobs, is a system called Blueprint, which is like a visual programming language. And some of our programmers will also be using Blueprint for doing a lot of the level design and setting up challenges in the game. So the Blueprint stuff you might actually find interesting, especially if you get to see the results. Yeah. Is there anything else to say on that? But I'd love to hear opinions. I think that's the thing. I mean, you and I are struggling at the moment to work out what we talk about.
Well, I guess that the purpose of this is really to talk about what it takes to build a video game. As we go through it, we're going to get some things right. We're going to fuck some things up. So we're going to swear a lot. Well, I'm going to swear a lot. It's just genetic. And we're interested in feedback. We're interested in.
Hello.
Just about to say we're interested in communicating.
I'll leave that with you, mate.
Oh, fantastic.
How are you doing, Deborah?
So, yeah, really, we're looking to just to kind of put out there what we're doing and the process of how we're doing it, and get feedback. Really, any questions? We're going to bring people in to talk about what we're doing and what they're doing and all kinds of related stuff. We're going to be hopefully, making it cool Otherwise, not much point. But
Yeah.
yeah, anything that
Okay,
anything that
thank you very
anybody's
much.
interested in, if there's an
I
aspect
appreciate
of
that, yeah.
anything that you see on this or anything to do with anything,
Okay, that's
put
great.
it out there and
Cheers, bye.
we'll talk about it. And he's back.
Yeah. Sorry about that. But, as I said, we do still work for other customers as well, and we're in a position where we need to take phone calls when they come in.
Keeping it real.
Yeah. Part of looking after our customers. So you'll see that from time to time on these streams. I'm sure somebody will call me and I'll have to step away, or somebody will call Margaret and she'll step away. But yeah, it was good to see that the way to actually get you to talk on Twitch was to disappear. Just leave you with it. What did you talk about?
Can't remember.
Okay. Filled in with something.
Shooting shit.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Have we marked this stream for offensive language or not?
I've no idea, but I've got plenty more offensive language where that came from.
Okay. Margaret's known for her offensive language.
It's not that offensive.
One of the things we should tell, right? This is so this is part of the history of the lab. So this is really.
We should save that.
It's part of the culture. No, I think we just run with it now. So one of the things Margaret has done is to actually establish. Well, we haven't done it so much recently, but certainly
we haven't done it for ages.
Back in the other office, was we have a very multicultural team, and in fact, before Christmas it was a lot more multicultural. So we had we've had Dutch, Indian, Chinese, Kiwi, Australian. Who else do we actually have? Indian and Mexican and Danish.
Yeah. Spanish, did you say Spanish?
Yeah, Spanish, that's right. Spanish, he wasn't Mexican.
And Australian.
Yes, I said Australian.
Okay,
I
good.
did say Australian. And since we had such a wide variety of people in there, and an Icelandic guest at one stage, Margaret decided to have a Friday afternoon workshop where we got together and basically learned how to swear.
Well, no, it was part of our retrospective every Friday.
Yeah.
It wasn't a workshop, but everybody from a different culture had to bring something.
As I remember, the retrospective was short and the swearing was the bulk. Yeah, so we.
It's popular.
We learned how to swear in each other's languages, and that was, that was part of the culture of the organisation.
We need to bring it back.
It was a bit of a surprise to the one guy that didn't swear,
but he swears now.
He learned to swear. Yeah.
It's amazing how fast people become comfortable with.
It is.
All manner of things.
It's very expressive, and especially if you haven't used it before and you get used to it, it's very expressive. And that's because so many of the words can be used as nouns, adjectives, verbs, adverbs.
Well, one in particular.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Well, in various languages, though. Yeah. All right. So that's part of the culture of the organisation. I'm sure there's things like that we're missing out here. If we're talking about the history of our
welcome to the
studio, there's all sorts of things that we've missed out. Like first customer.
Oh no, that was just hell. It's not.
Good at keeping it real. Yeah. Okay. All right, so that's probably our 30 minutes. Well, it's 28 minutes. So we're 2 minutes, 30 minutes.
We can just walk away and.
Oh, apparently there's some questions on our chat. How do I actually see that? Oh, okay. So we're on for a bit because somebody's engaged with us there. If I go on.
This is how green we really are. We have no fucking idea what we're doing. But we're learning.
So that was I think that was our friend Alex actually just alerting us to the fact that things are happening. And we're not very prepared because we don't have Twitch open, which is, although we're streaming to it, we don't have it open.
Rookie error.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's... Okay, oh God, I'm not even set up on Twitch on my phone.
Let's see if I am.
Yeah, are you set up? Okay, so slight pause here while we work out what we're doing. Yeah.
Too funny.
Well, this is streaming. People expect these delays. It's not like
Do
television.
they? Do
Oh,
they?
yeah.
I don't know if they do.
If it was television, they would,
Yeah.
basically producers would be pulling their hair out. And,
Oh, cool. No, I don't want to visit the advertiser's website. Fuck off.
okay.
Ah, bless. So I've got a friend messaging me at the moment saying we need to sort our shit out. Hey Matt, how you doing? Fuck you.
Which Matt is that?
Simpson.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah, shout out to Matt.
That guy.
Hi. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the feedback.
Do you still talk to that guy?
Not anymore.
I thought we had an injunction or something.
We should.
Okay. Okay, so you're in there.
I'm in there.
Alright, so I don't need to do anything, but I need to work out how to use this app. I don't know. I can't even see how I log into that. Oh, see, that's mine. That's not the Stickmen. That's why I can't see.
That's us there. That's the chat there.
Okay, very good. So we had one comment. Okay, that was hardly worth staying on for, really. So we've got an audience of one, it would seem.
Anywho.
Yeah.
Shall we?
Okay. Look at that. My girlfriend just asked me how's work. So she's not even watching. No, not even our friends are watching. Well, Matt. What did he say? Disappeared. Watching Brook is like watching my fucking granddad tech. I asked a question about AI, okay?
Okay, so.
Where's this question about AI? Watching my granddad tech. In fact, with our friends, it wouldn't pay to be thin-skinned. Okay, where's the Twitch thing gone?
Oh, God, why do we care about the Twitch thing?
Oh,
hello. Oh, we do care. Oh, there's 8 people watching.
How do you use AI within your game? Oh, that's actually a decent question. So at the moment, we haven't done a great deal with the AI. We're basically working off a nav mesh, so we do have a couple of demonstration levels where the zombies are actually advancing towards you and you get to shoot at them. No weapons choice, no advanced behaviour in the AI at all. As I said, mostly just working off the nav mesh. But we certainly will have some AI. We've got some distinct behaviours for some of the zombies. So we'll have zombies that can actually sniff you out. We'll have zombies that are alerted by noise. And so all those behaviours will actually have to be coded in. I know, so Matt's asking this question because Matt is something of an expert in AI, and we have relied on Matt in the past to actually help us out with doing things where it's probably very difficult to actually code a rule base for AI. So Matt uses things like genetic algorithms to essentially evolve a solution. And that stuff's really interesting, and certainly not out of the bounds of something that we make use of in this game. Yeah. Can you keep that?
Does that answer your question, Matt?
Yes, Matt.
Matt. Whoops. We'll figure out this Twitch thing out.
Yeah.
Are you worried that zombie-themed games have been overdone? Fuck no.
No. I don't think. I don't think you can do too much of zombies. I don't think you can do too much of vampires. I think since they came on the scene, they keep re-emerging in movies, on television, comics, and all the rest of it.
I think if you keep doing them in a way that's fun and novel and interesting, or classic, or something that's engaging, it's more about the fun, probably the fun factor, than it is about the zombie.
Yeah. It would be nice to see some, or it would be nice to be responsible for the emergence of some sort of new monster that has the same pull as the traditional vampire or zombie. It would be nice to be in the position of Mary Shelley or somebody like that creates something that has never been seen before that absolutely terrifies people, and that they really can't get enough of in fiction.
I'm sorry, I'm still just cracked up over Matt's comment about
Granddad in tech. Okay, that's going to be the theme. Brook is Granddad in tech. Thank you, Matt. That tickles you.
Yeah.
Okay. Charlotte, are you listening?
No, she's not. Yeah, well, she might be. Hopefully not.
Ask a question if you're listening.
Matt says, glad you can amuse. Oh, you can. Oh, fuck, you're funny. You are the funniest thing out there, Matt. And we'll be counting on you in further streams to bring the funny.
Yes. Yes, you've stuck your hand up now.
Yes. You've established yourself as the funny. So, another question. Can you explain what we're seeing being designed?
Okay, so
sure.
in the background, we're looking at Sergi, our modeler and sculptor. He's working on a character called King Leon. So King Leon is a boss character. I'm not sure what he's actually doing with it at the moment. I can see geometry there. But I think he might be producing it, at this point in the movie, he might be producing the low poly low poly model from the sculpt. What's actually happening here, Sergi?
It's the topology stage. I am projecting normal maps from the high poly.
Okay.
And making the low poly model as well.
Ah, right. Okay. So Sergi is producing the low poly model, as I thought, but he's also doing another stage here, which is a really interesting thing that happens in the character development for games, is mapping it, putting the normal map from a high poly version of the character onto the low poly version. So a normal map is really specifications for how light is going to be treated, or how light is going to be directed when it actually hits the surface. So using normal maps, you can create detail on the models that you couldn't actually represent with geometry. So it might take millions of polygons of geometry to actually put in the sort of detail, lines in the face and things like that. You just couldn't actually put that amount of polys on the screen without really slowing down the processing. But with a normal map, you can actually essentially fake that detail. You can put that detail in just by telling light which way to bend when it hits this particular area of the model. So you can get the appearance of lines and so forth. Normal maps in all their forms, there's a lot of there's a number of ways that normal mapping is actually used to create detail. Detail and depth. You'll often see this when you look. Well, here's something you'll try in a game. If you've got a game that's got a particularly rough wall or something, and you're thinking, wow, that's great detail on that rough wall. If you can get your character's head alongside the wall and look along it, and if it appears completely flat when you do, then you'll know that what you're seeing when you're looking at that wall front on is actually some sort of normal mapping, some parallax occlusion mapping, or which is another sort of normal mapping to actually create that detail. Yeah. Did that answer that question? You're not even there. You're actually texting your girlfriend. Oh.
Quite possibly. Does that answer your question? I'm going to assume yes.
Yeah. Either that or we bored you and you went to work.
Yeah. I tuned out.
I noticed.
Yeah.
I noticed. We can't even hold our own attention in this stream. Hopefully we get better over the next few weeks.
Just sillier.
All right. Okay. Well, I guess that's probably it for today. We did 40 minutes, so that's 10 minutes more than we expected.
And 20 minutes less than we have. Oh, hang on. How does someone get into this area of work?
Oh,
So
man, that's...
games specifically, or modelling, or what we've just been talking about, or games in general.
All right. So let me start with in general. So there's essentially we hire people that have been to one of the colleges around Christchurch. We've got two here. One's ARA and the other is UBI, where they produce people that have learned to actually model in Maya. It's probably the popular modelling package that these people are trained in. And they'll be training for animation in general, so that's animation for making TV commercials, for working in the movies. So people with these sorts of skills get employed by digital advertising agencies, working on movies, working in special effects studios, and of course working in the video game industry. Now, getting into the video game industry is one of those things that takes tenacity. It's a very popular field to work in, and there's not that many, well, in New Zealand at least, not that many places you can go to work. So I guess many of the people that we've ended up in have just been tenacious. They just kept applying, and in the meantime kept practicing and kept getting better. So my advice to you is choose a good school. So learn the skills that you actually need. So sculpting, 3D modelling, and animating. I know many of the smaller studios really like generalists. So if you can also learn some really good fine art skills, so learn how to draw, learn how to paint, and then learn how to do it digitally, then you'll be really, really popular. Keep an up-to-date show reel. So whenever you produce something that's good, make sure it's on your show reel. Keep your show reel up to date, because when I look at a CV, honestly, the first thing I look at is the link for the show reel. If the show reel grabs me, then I'll look at the rest of the stuff. Margaret's actually a bit different, mate. You tend to look at the cultural fit of the person before you look at the show reel, don't you?
Yep, definitely. Well, I mean, if the show reel's crap, then, or average, or not showing potential, then we don't go any further. But I'm mostly interested in, beyond that, I'm mostly interested in how they're going to fit. I think the smaller the team you've got, the more danger there is in bringing in somebody that's going to just kind of sour things or make things awkward or make things difficult, that we don't have the sort of power of peer pressure that a bigger organisation can have. Mm-hmm. So we're pretty careful about that. I was going to say the other thing that we don't often talk about, there's a vast range of activities and roles in the games industry, not so much in small companies but globally, but one of the things that we almost never talk about is the entrepreneurial side of it, and I have absolutely no previous experience in the games industry. I had no qualifications aside from some design stuff. I built websites, so I'd done some coding and some design and done some music, so there were sort of relevant interests in there, but I had absolutely no qualifications or anything relevant. But what I am interested in is entertainment, and I am interested in games generally, although specifically I only like shooting things. But I am interested in
Zombie Stomper and Dead Island. That's it.
In starting companies and seeing where they go effectively. So that's another thing that people don't often talk about. but it's a totally valid pathway. In the games industry, somebody has to start a company, somebody has to think of the game, somebody has to start it all off and hold the vision and manage it. So that's another point of view as well.
Certainly on the cultural side of working for a games company, once we get past the point of looking at your show reel, if we also see that you worked in teams, that's a really good thing. And even if you're working, just trying to build up your show reel by yourself, working with a friend to produce something and sort of being able to tell us that really catches our attention when we're interviewing. So yes, I did this with my friend Stan. He did the coding and I did the art, or I did the sculpting and he did the animating or whatever. Those sorts of collaborations, they really catch our attention because we are working with people here that are project focused. So they are looking at a particular project and not working on their own. They have to work with people. They have to be able to hand off tasks to people and take tasks from people, and just work together to make sure everything fits at the end. And working on a game like this really tests how well people work in a project.
We've got a couple more questions. What's the type of game you're working on?
So After the Light is a 3D zombie survival game. As I said, the premiere experience is a virtual reality version of it, but essentially it will also be for just playing on the screen. In the game itself, you are adopting a number of fixed positions to sort of clear the world of zombies as you proceed from the upper level of a cave system down to the entrance to the halls of the dead, the sort of mystical place where death lives and looks after the souls. You don't have free roaming ability. You are in a number of fixed points, and what you're presented with at each point is a challenge to clear the zombies in this particular area, and ammunition might be scarce. So there's really a lot of strategic decision making that needs to go into how I actually clear this level. There might be a situation where you've got 5 zombies and 3 bullets. So that might involve interacting with the environment in some way. There might be some environmental challenge, perhaps you've got to, shoot an exploding barrel or something if you can get them all gathered around it, so that you can take them out with the 3 bullets instead of needing 5.
So we're still working through the level design, but that's the basic.
Yeah, that's the basic gameplay. Yeah.
What other game dev studios do we get inspiration from?
That's a really good question. Actually, I'm a big fan of the open world style games, so I have to say, Bethesda, ZeniMax, with their Fallouts and Skyrims and all the rest of it, I play those things to death. I absolutely love those things. Ubisoft is another one. God, I wasted so much of my life playing Black Flag. I absolutely love that game. And it was a real treat at last year's GDC to actually meet up with some of the guys from Ubisoft. I think I met the guy that designed the Capuchin Monkey or something like that, and I was such a fanboy.
Of the Capuchin Monkey?
Of the guy that actually designed it, because it's such a cool little monkey.
Clear that up.
Yeah.
I think a lot of what the indie studios are doing is absolutely fucking amazing.
Yeah, actually, so some of the smaller studios, I know I'm going to forget the name of the studio when I try to actually say
I'm not even going to bother to try, I'm just going to leave it over to you.
Okay, I have forgotten their name. The guys that made Amnesia, the Dark Descent, I absolutely love that game.
Absolutely no idea who made that for the moment, but I'll remember immediately.
Who they are. If I remember, I will shout it out. Probably at midnight when I'm asleep. So
obvious.
Oh yeah, we've got Google. We don't have to rely on memory.
Why wonder about anything?
We don't have to rely on memory. So those guys, they did so much with so little resource that...
Frictional games.
Frictional, thank you. Frictional. Great games. They made another one since, that you bought me actually.
Machine for Pigs.
A Machine for Pigs, yeah. Yeah, really cool stuff. Great imaginations on those guys. Who inspires you?
I'm
always
still
like
obsessed
Limbo.
with Limbo. Yeah, Play Dead. I think that's just amazing.
Yeah.
So those guys, that just totally rocks for me.
And that's where Margaret and I really get on well with our game stuff, because we love the moodiness of Limbo is exactly the sort of things we want to put in our games. Limbo is a magical little game.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still remember all the floating dead boys.
Yeah.
A Little Sick was great.
A Little Sick is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's just elegantly sick.
All right. So.
Oh God, why do I keep doing that?
Because you keep texting your girlfriend and watching that.
Yes, whatever. That might be the reason. So I think we've come to the end of questions, unless anybody is in the middle of questioning. But we can pick it up tomorrow in any case, because we're going to be back here at the same time.
Back here, 1 o'clock every day. We'll try to get these
New Zealand
things.
time.
New Zealand time. Yeah. We'll try to get these things out to an hour.
It's easy to forget we live on some tiny little island in the middle of nowhere,
we do.
really.
Do we know we should look that up on the clock, what time that is in other places?
We can figure that out.
I think we can do that now.
But anyway, same time, same place.
Indeed.
And we'll figure out something else to bumble our way through.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm not sure how to formally finish these things, so I'll just say goodbye.